The premise of Walk This Way is that it's a program where we're trying to have kind of an intervention, feet to the street, so to speak, where we are redirecting students that are gathering either in small groups or larger groups, usually the larger groups, to kind of come up with their social plans for the evening. We've heard a lot of feedback over the years where neighbors have been disrupted because people have gathered on street corners in their residential neighborhoods to kind of figure out where they're going to go. A lot of times the first couple weeks of school, people are still figuring out their kind of paths. They don't know exactly the hill, so to speak, as well, and so they're working to kind of figure out where they're going to go, and that causes noise. But also there's a safety component to this as well. We're worried about students who, particularly with the games where they're wearing all black, they're not showing up very well at night when they're crossing the street, and in some cases not looking both ways before crossing the street. We're worried about that, so we were kind of passing on the message of look both ways when you're crossing the street. And there's also a bit of alcohol moderation conversation going on there when we're handing out the cookies to talk a little bit about, you know, it's good to eat before you're drinking, it's good to eat while you're drinking, if you're going to consume alcohol, and things high in fatty content are best. And we handed out cookies. Now we handed out about, I would say, a little over 5,500 cookies through our pilot throughout September, so that's a lot of cookies. And we had a lot of people that would return each weekend to get cookies, and people that would get multiple cookies as well. So 5,500 is not necessarily a unique number of how many people we had served, so to speak, total in the program, because we had a lot of people that did return, came back multiple times, that type of thing. Yes, I think the first week people were very hesitant as to why were we on the street, were we part of a student organization. A lot of folks originally thought we were kind of part of a religious organization potentially. I think at first they were a little skeptical, especially of our student assistants that looked and appeared younger than our full-time staff, as to whether or not the cookies might have been potentially laced or had some sort of, you know, they might have been edibles. And so those were good conversations that we were glad that students were engaging us with, because we think that there needs to be a conversation around personal safety as well. And so I think by the second and third week, and especially this last weekend, people kind of knew we were the cookie people. And after we had some publicity, both in the Daily Camera and then also in CU Today, we tried to be very intentional about putting stuff out there so people knew we were wearing these very bright, I don't have one unfortunately with me at the moment, but we have these very bright, like, safety yellow shirts that say Walk This Way. And we started wearing our name tags as well so people knew who we were. Also, some of the feedback we heard from talking to some of our student leaders and student government was that a lot of times students figure out their paths within the first 4 to 5 weeks of school. So we're kind of at that point now where people kind of know where they're going to go socially in the, during the weekends and in the late evening. So I think we're kind of at that point where hopefully the message is out there and they can kind of start to figure out where they're going without kind of crossing through some of these more permanent residential areas. Right now we're going to really be focusing a lot on qualitative, so we're going to be actually talking a lot to trying to get feedback through neighbors, and we're actually doing a dialogue dinner tomorrow with students, restorative justice program here at CU, and then also neighbors that have been invited from the Hill primarily, and we're hoping to engage in some conversations around noise and disruption, because it's a common theme that comes up every year with folks that are permanent residents. We come up with this debate a lot of times where folks are saying, well, especially from CU students saying, you know, permanent residents shouldn't choose to live on the Hill because this is where students live. Well, the case is the Hill has changed culturally a lot over the last 30 years, and some of our permanent residents have been there for 30, 40 years, where that neighborhood used to be a lot more professors and staff, and the demographic was a little different, and so it's changed. And so keeping in perspective that also noise disrupts other fellow buffs. It's not just full-time residents that the noise is disrupting. Some of our fellow students and staff, they go to bed earlier than some of the students think. You know, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning is really early, and I know I go to bed. I'm a staff member, but I also go to bed, you know, these days, you know, before 2 o'clock in the morning. That's pretty late. So getting students to think about that as well, kind of as a larger community issue.